joining NLBP and then having that, what are we calling it? Container, collaborative, community, whatever they're,
Right.
but having that really safe space where we're all in very different businesses, but kind of had a lot of those same, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Okay, this is what it's going to look like. Okay, now how do I do it? So being able to have the support and the safety net to say, I'm thinking of this, and people going like, that makes me feel scratchy. Like they're just being honest with
Right, which I love.
reactions, which that like, nope, that's not quite it, or oh my gosh, that's great, definitely go in that direction. That's what I found with NLBP is it's not networking, it is business partnership.
Hello, and welcome to Tribe Talks. I am Catherine Gagno, Executive Director at the NLBP. Today, I am thrilled for member Amy Flores-Young, who's going to be joining us today. What's a piece of advice perhaps that you had learned from NLBP and maybe that you hadn't learned prior to joining the group in January of this year? I think that's a good place to start.
So good morning, everybody. And I think the biggest thing is there was obviously the past, not to minimize the past year and a half, but one of the things that makes me really great at what I do is that there is no such thing as overwhelm and crisis in my world. Luckily, like that's what makes me good at what I do. So while everyone else was running around, pivot, oh my God, recurring revenue, what am I going to do?
Right.
I had those thoughts, but kind of stepped back and said, and I joke that, we threw a lot of spaghetti at the wall, like Costco size boxes. We were like, okay, maybe I'll do this. Maybe I'll write the book. Maybe I'll do that, and after kind of wasting all of that time or, sitting in that, I guess it's not a waste of time, right? It was a very important learning experience. Realized that I specialize in what I specialize for a reason. And that is my zone of genius, and that is where I need to stay, and those types of thoughts. So I then focused on working on the business, and it's still, it's all a work in progress, but updated the website, created the Facebook group, got much more consistent with my writing and my blogs, and just basically now I had so much time to show up and network that I was everywhere networking, which was its own curse.
Right.
So that's when I found NLBP, and that's through all of that networking, and that was speaking with Camille and kind of understanding, kind of talking me off the ledge of
she's amazing at that.
Right. Like it made me realize that, like, all right, meeting people and being out there is great, but you're going to burn yourself out. You can't keep up with that kind of follow-up, as we were talking about earlier.
Yes.
There's a difference between meet and greet, business cards, swap. Like you've got to nurture that relationship if they're ever going to remember you. And joining NLBP and then having that, what are we calling it? Container, collaborative, community, whatever they're, but having that really safe space where we're all in very different businesses, but kind of had a lot of those same, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Okay, this is what it's going to look like. Okay, now how do I do it? So being able to have the support and the safety net to say, I'm thinking of this, and people going like, that makes me feel scratchy. Like they're just being honest with
which I love.
Which that like, nope, that's not quite it, or oh my gosh, that's great, definitely go in that direction. That's what I found with NLBP is it's not networking, it is business partnership.
Right. And I think that's such a key. And there's so much opportunity and so much growth opportunity. I loved your, I want to just you said something, and I wrote it down because I didn't want to forget. And I know I'm going off script a little bit, which I said I might do. Okay. You said your zone, what did you say? Your zone of genius?
Zone of genius. Yeah, that's the catchphrase.
I know, what is your zone of genius? I love this, first off.
So,
And
yeah, there was I went to a session, one of those, I went to a session, program, training, webinar, whatever they are these days. And we talked about, big thing was talking about, there were 5 buckets, maybe it was 4, but buckets of, I suck at this, I'm okay at this, I am competent, I excel. This is my zone of genius, boom, 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 zone of genius. So there's a difference between being competent and capable and it being and when you're in your zone of genius, as you are working in there, you get joy, it comes with ease and flow, that's the difference.
Right.
So when I look at that, someone said, why didn't you pivot to virtual? You've done event planning, forget the travel, your picture of it and do virtual summits. And I said, yeah, I'm more than, all of that fills in my competence to excel. I am more than competent with technology and virtual spaces and organizing rooms and agendas. And I said, but my zone of genius, like you said, is there is something, and why I do what I do the way I do it, is there is something in a shared travel experience that will never be duplicated in a virtual space or in any other type of conference setting. It's a totally different relationship. So while I do work, as we talked about, in the business space, sales teams, 50 people looking to go away on a corporate level.
Right.
Doing it more for coaches, but even on that corporate level too, there comes a loyalty and a relationship, like I said, that you can't duplicate elsewhere. And that's why that's my space.
So that's what I love too. So yes. Okay. So you're saying a few things, which I think is interesting. And I think people should take note though. So could you have pivoted and done the virtual? Yes, you could have, you were capable, but what I love is that you stay true to you and what you truly know. And I think though that sometimes actually takes more courage to do than actually saying, I'm going to do this because I have to do it. You have this harried sense of urgency to do something, but instead you really stay true to who you are as not, as an individual, as a businesswoman. So I love that. I think that that's really inspiring, to be honest, because so many people would have moved from their zone of genius and tried to conquer other areas. And to your point, you're competent, but you stick to the zone in which you know that you can really deliver and do so well. And I think I'm really actually in awe. I didn't know that. We never touched on that. So see, we're uncovering new information. So I do love this zone of genius, and I hope everyone does find their own personal zone of genius as you're going through this. I think that's super smart. And like I said, you didn't switch your gears because to appease or to fall into a situation that could have been short term, right? Because I do think it will be a longer comeback, but I do know live, because the human nature is for people to interact in a live environment.
Right.
Exactly. And it's coming out, I think, in a lot of articles about even workspaces. People need that collaboration of in-person learning.
Yes. Like I say, it's completely different. And when you can pull away all the distractions, and a full virtual summit, when you're in 6 hours a day, but you still have the dog and you're still making dinner later, and you're still, when you can pull away and truly immerse yourself, that's where the magic happens. That's what I said, that's where
immersive. Yes, there's a key word for us. There's a good key word for you.
Yeah. So, and it's not to say that obviously I tweaked all my messaging, and in all of my networking, I met so many coaches and holistic practitioners, and again, with love and support in my heart, who had done horrible retreats.
Right.
Right. And, and I was hearing, oh, there's no money in that. Oh, it's too much work. Oh, and so the gap. So again, I was able to really hone in on where the gap was. So that was my pivot, was really changing my messaging to reach out to those people more than my like disability travel services and, the other things that I do. It was like, oh, those are the people I need to help. It became
Okay.
so clear.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. I like that though, that something, something did crystallize through this
Yeah,
process, if you will, right? So I think that's always important. I'm going back to my cheat sheet or guidelines, if you will,
sure.
so to say. Well, you actually kind of answered my next question, when your business pivoted, but you also said, did it open any new doors? And it sounds like you did find a bit of a new door and an area that
Yes.
totally
Yeah. And now
benefits.
that things are opening up more and I'm hearing from more clients about what they're looking for, it's also helping me clarify my ideal, like, you have your ideal client, but then
Right,
you
of
have
course.
your really ideal client. And you're right, as things are moving forward, my little tip here that we got one of our NLBP conversations was, okay, like look at I have my board up here where all my next trips and programs are happening. So when I look at those 12 things, which ones make you go, oh my God, that's going to be great. And which make you go, oh, I've got to call them again. Like,
Right.
right. Like, so it even helps you really narrow in. If you could have 7 more Sallys,
Right.
that's so like say it just keeps clarifying and crystallizing and as we move forward.
And I have a quick question, actually. So, being in the space and as we had talked about, it's very relationship based.
Mhm.
How did you maintain clients, or how did you just work through with your clients who said to you, okay, we're putting everything on hold indefinitely? And how did you work through that? Did you retain? I'm assuming there was a client loss, and it might have just been the business component, but did you lose any relationships as their result of COVID, or were you able to maintain
Yeah,
those? And how did you maintain relationships during a time that's kind of
we maintain relationships as in just staying top of mind and current and checking in, like maintain the relationship. But I can
right?
tell you my current active client list does not
Mhm.
have anyone on it that I had before COVID. It's all new
Wow.
clients.
Wow.
Because
Okay.
and it shows that I think people who had been doing it for a while.
Hmm.
2 of the people I worked with said, I'm never doing live again. I'm going 100%, like the big pivot. I'm going 100% virtual, no overhead, blah, blah, blah. I'm never going live again. And I said, okay, that's like, you're right. Then I'm not your person anymore.
Right. Right.
That's your, they took their business fully online. Yeah. And then as we mentioned previously, some of the corporate clients I had, those mid-sized, like you say, they didn't
Hmm.
have an in-house person, so they were
Right.
outsourcing it. Now that everyone's working from home, like their team building stuff was to come into the office
Right.
and see each other. And then they were back out. They weren't traveling anymore. There wasn't, they like at this point, they don't have
Right.
that need to,
Right.
to
Yet.
yeah, right. Yeah. So, yeah. So everyone that I'm currently working with to do events, retreats at the end of 2021 and into 2022,
Okay.
um, are all new clients. I'm like, just double checking, but yeah, they're all new clients
Well, I
since.
think that's actually amazing too, to be honest. And like I said, I think you stay true to you in terms of a business person. Like I said, it's easy to go down that rabbit hole to say, oh, I can do anything and become real scrappy, if you will. I use that term scrappy, but
Yeah. I was scrappy for 25 years. And I think
I know,
that's
and I do love,
there's
and I
an
do. So
experience. You're
let's
right. There's
talk
past
about that.
experience where I'm like, that's not it anymore.
Right.
Right.
Well,
Like, so it's easier to stand your ground when you've, been around the block a couple of times, I guess.
we did talk about that, and I like to call it scrappy is a good word though, but working in a nonprofit sector, um, limited resources, but I do think what happens is you become and learn how to be extremely resourceful and quick on to think quick. And I think so for some of, and I not laugh, but I think sometimes those that work in a for-profit company, a large corporation, have no idea of the value add that those that work in the nonprofit sector could bring over to them because of their ability to be nimble, to think quickly, to use limited resources, to deliver really still high-end programming. And you have I'd love to hear a little bit, we didn't even get into it, but a little bit about your background and, you know, you had shared that you worked in the Y, and tell me if I'm wrong, but within a YMCA environment. And my daughter's currently at camp at a YMCA, so we're big believers.
Yep.
Went to preschool when I was younger. So,
Yep.
but love to hear about your experience and how it helped you kind of pivot to who you know, again, to your business today. Like, what did you take from all of that experience with you to your current
Yeah,
offering
well, I've
structure
had
position?
many different roles through the nonprofit
Right.
life.
Yes.
Yeah, I was hired full-time at a YMCA while I was in college. So, and I was a Y rat, like you like growing up the whole bit.
Right.
So I just thought, this is it. I'm going to be a Y director, going to move through the system, blah, blah, blah. So then I had my daughter, who, for those in NLBP know, but everybody else, who's severely disabled and now an adult at home. So when she was young, I transitioned all of that nonprofit knowledge and moved to disability service nonprofit. So while I've
Okay.
had many roles and positions, I really only had what I call like two main adult jobs. Like I've only had two big jobs in my life, like adult jobs, where most people move at my age, have had multiple companies, moved around a lot. Every 4 or 5 years, they jump to something new. I really didn't have that because we're scrappy and those
Right.
roles constantly evolved and you became more efficient, you became more effective, you moved up, so I became,
Right.
an executive administrator into like operations and all of that stuff. And it's that experience like that makes this my zone of genius. Um,
Right. Right.
it's not just, oh, let's book some flights, find a hotel and have a nice little event. It's so much more than that.
Yeah. Share with me some of that in depth that goes into it, because I do think people think it's just very surface and it's very
Yeah,
glamorous.
there is such a difference between a retreat, whatever you want to call it, workshop in a gorgeous place, whatever, and a vacation. You know, you don't need me to book, and this is like one of our mantras within like a joke within our travel business is like, you don't need me to book your crappy vacation.
Right.
Like Google can do that,
Right.
right? Like honestly, we are so much more than that.
Right.
So when I start working with a client, one of the biggest things we ask, they might say like, oh, I want to do blah, 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 blah. And it's like, whoop, nope. What's your vision? And we pull out what is your unique offer, whatever we want to call that, whatever that content is. And then I make sure that the destination we choose aligns with all of that. So
Right.
everything you do within that event with that group is reinforced. Your activities, your location, the food that's brought in, the entertainment, that it's reinforcing. There's ways to be able to reflect on you might be doing a guided hike and you're talking about sales or whatever, right? Or
Right. But how do you
so
take it to?
how do you incorporate that experience into the learning? Like that's my youth work and that's my
Right.
YMCA facilitation, mediation. And then I was an outdoor adventure guide as well, like all through that youth work. So icebreakers, team building, like did that for 20 years. It's like, so when I talk to coaches and they're like, and I'm like, oh, well, you could do an activity, blah, 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 and they're like, how did you know? Because it's just innate. It's what I've done for
Right.
so long. And I think that's what we all need to pull out of ourselves is what just comes easy to you. Don't lose value of that, don't lose sight of the value of that. And I do it all the time. When someone's like, I just went to this retreat and they did, and I'm like, that's such a basic activity. We all do that. Like you forget, like for people who don't live in that space,
It's a
how
big deal.
transformational it truly is when they have that experience.
Right. Oh, I love that. But I love that you're saying this, because it's beyond, it's truly making it a program, like it's just making it an experience, right? It's beyond just showing up. There is such an experience that comes to that. And I think there's a lot more that goes on behind the scenes than people realize, and how much it takes to pull that off,
Right.
to make it feel that way.
And just like you don't need someone, like you don't need us to plan your crappy vacation. Like,
Right.
it's the same thing with retreats. That's why the way I work with clients, and I don't take on 50 clients, I work with 12 clients annually. Because
Okay.
that's That's the relationship. The amount of time
Right.
and space and everything so kind of like when I'm full until the next rotation opens up. And it's the same thing. You can go online, you can go to any of those sites and you can find a wellness retreat,
Right.
super cheap. Like I said, they are a dime a dozen. Doesn't mean they're any good. Those are
Right.
usually, those wellness retreats are group travel experiences that have
Right.
been prefabbed, prepackaged, and then are sold out. And that's why they're such a great deal. And that's great. If
Right.
you're looking for a wellness vacation, that's great. That's not what a transformational retreat is.
Okay. I like this transformation. I think that that's a key word that you just said, transformation. I think you have to use that too.
Right. Immersive, transformational.
These are all things that are going into what we talked about earlier. So,
Yep.
so I've made some notes. So I know we could probably keep going on because I know you and I have this gift of gab, which is amazing. But I love, and I think you kind of talked about the channel planning service, what you do, how it all interrelates. But now kind of circling back, what are 3 words that you would just in the past, what are we now, 7 months into being a member of NLBP, but like, what are the 3 words or, I always love to hear 3 words about people, how they describe their experience with NLBP.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have 3 words?
For me, it's support, and I had them, but I should have written them down. It's support,
Mm-hmm.
compassion,
Mm.
and non-judgment.
Oh, I've not heard non-judgment. I've not heard compassion yet. So I love that.
Yeah.
And I think you're spot on. Like I've actually, I maybe have thought, maybe I haven't thought, but I do like that. And I think that that's true, but I think that that's what's such a unique.
Exactly. It's a
What
very
makes it unique. And I know it's not it's not, and I think that it's not about necessarily, it's not top line networking. It's more about relationship building. And I think that that's not a misnomer, but just for people to understand that. And you've shared that this is not a networking place. Right.
Yes.
It's a relationship building place. Yes. But not, come out and exchange business cards. So.
Right. And for what I do, interestingly enough, like NLBP is not where my ideal clients are housed.
Right. No, not at all.
So a lot of people think like, oh, you join memberships, not to get business, but where there will be some reciprocal referral base or whatever. And that's not NLBP. Again, it's called business partnership because it is, we have people brand new, we have people totally transitioning what they're offering, how they're working, going for new certifications and how they're going to it's so everyone's in totally different places. And then we have people who've been in business 20 years. Right.
Which is amazing.
So it's such shared knowledge.
It is. That's what I think of it as, like
entrepreneur knowledge. That's what it is.
This brain trust, right? I think it's like untapped brain trust. And I think what else is amazing is like just this brain trust is with some of the backgrounds. I mean, you're within the travel. We've had, there's a member who's previously electrical engineer, like this crazy brain trust it's just amazing, the magnitude. So, but anyway, but I love your words. Thank you. Not I wrote them down. But I think we're out of time. Like I said, I know you and I could keep chatting, but if there's, I just first and foremost want to say thank you for agreeing to do this.
Everything that you're bringing to NLBP, and
it's a lot of fun. It's fun. This is about being fun. And, again, it's just, we want to share the story, right? We want to all share our stories. And I think your story is so unique, and you're only travel person in the biz. So you and I, we're on our island together. So, but I want to, your valuable insights and everything today. It's really amazing. So thank you so much for taking the time. And
happy to do it.
All right. Thanks, Amy. Bye.